Yo, yo, yo. What's good? What's good? It's Stormy B Man, and I am back. Welcoming you to the Tuesday Tussle for this Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. We're calling this episode Switching Gears, Adjusting on the Fly. Yeah! Listen, I wanted to pardon my little bit of a delay because I was trying to get my stream going across multiple channels, but it just wasn't working for me this evening. So we're multi-streaming on YouTube and Rumble, my main channel on YouTube and my Rumble channel. I was having difficulty linking up my other two channels, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of an investigation as to what happened with that. But that's the only thing that was delaying me. I was trying to get that going for you, but I apologize for those who may have been looking to see, what's going on with Stormy and why his stream is just showing his storm and water draining for an extended period of time. I apologize for that, people. But we are here this evening, man. And salute to, we got Jamal Davis over there on the Rumble app. Any of you who are subscribed to the Rumble page, please write over there as well if you want. You just let Stormy know that you are present. You know, we'll do a quick roll call to see who we got in the building. I want to say salute to Columbia out there who has placed the links for the channel in the chat for me. That's always a solid thing. Thank you so much, Columbia, for your assistance with that. And salute to you. We got Brent Fox out there as well, saying just wanted to show support. If you haven't done so, please hit the like button. Please also subscribe. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Brent Fox. And you're working on climbing up the Stormy B-Man ladder. You only hear every so often, huh? That's why you ain't got your wrench yet. But, you know, I do recognize when you're here. Ravens Nation in the building saying good evening. Universal Truth is back with us saying salute, Sensei, in chat. Hey, y'all, that's first time. Got that many words at one time out of Universal, man. He's coming along. Adrian Vitt in the building. What's good with you? Saying salute. Convos with Cam is out there as well, saying salute, Stormy, in chat. Blessings to you. Yeah. Jamal Davis is also here on the Stormy B-Man main channel saying salute, peace, and blessings. Yes, sir. And Convos with Cam is reminding everybody to smash the like button and share the video. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Listen, when we talk about switching gears and adjusting on the fly, the ability, the knack for being able to do that is important, because as we go on in life, we see that we have stumbling blocks, we have detours and dead ends, and we have to learn how to navigate these avenues as they come across us in our everyday lives. And we also are totally observant of this when it applies to boxing. So when we talk about switching gears, sometimes you may have to speed things up a little bit to acknowledge the pace that you find your circumstances. You might have to find yourself keeping up. You might find yourself having to set the pace, And you also may have to put people in a position where they have to keep up with you. Yeah. So one of the fights that transpired this past weekend is a fight that I felt gave me a great segue for my subject, and to be able to talk about the fight itself, what transpired, and how we have found ourselves coming along with the subject at hand. And that would be the fight that took place, Teofimo Lopez and Shakur Stevenson. Now, we all know the result of this fight, and going in, how many of us shared the sentiments of this being a situation where the two combatants, I stated, bring similar characteristic qualities to the bout, and though they had different mindsets and temperaments, but there was something about their overall character that is kind of a mirrored reflection. Some people may not see that, but I still see it, even in the aftermath of how things have gone. We now know that Shakur Stevenson boxed his way to a unanimous decision over Teofimo Lopez, who found himself just totally outmatched after the first round of the fight. It just looked like he wasn't prepared for what was in front of him. Maybe the moment got to him. Maybe Shakur Stevenson got to him. But whatever the case being, we know that Teofimo was not able to switch gears. He was not able to go into a different mode of attack. He was not able to try to stem the tide or get Shakur off of his square. Now, in order to do that, there are oftentimes imminent threat to that, meaning that you may have to sacrifice somewhat and take more than you are necessarily wanting to take, but not necessarily what you have to take, because that can be assessed by who you're in there with. Now, there are people who were banking on the fact that the brittle hands of Shakur Stevenson may come into play during this match, and that even Teofimo Lopez, after some of the pre-fight build-up in interviews, he had indicated as such. Maybe something might happen with Shakur's hands, seeing that he's had hand injuries in the past and circumstances that he might even try to inflict some sort of discomfort for Shakur Stevenson. But at the end of the day, what was necessarily required from the Teofimo side was not allowed to go into the fray, and I'll tell you one major reason why. His dad's involvement. Teofimo Lopez's dad is a horrible corner man. And from the looks of things, he may even be a horrible dad, because a real dad would assess where his son is going with his career and try to do his utmost to ensure that he gets the best of what's required if he's now finding himself in the ring against what could be considered elite competition. Now, going in, it was looked at that Teo himself could be considered elite competition. But after the performance, we saw that he was nothing more than a pretender. Now, his talent and ability states more than he just being a pretender, but it's the corner work or lack thereof of Mr. Lopez Sr. that brings him down several notches to not only being inadequate and insufficient, but downright lower tier. And that's very unfortunate, because going into the fight, it was my understanding that Stacy McKinley, a noted boxing trainer who's had plenty of time with corner work with the likes of Mike Tyson and many other fighters, he wasn't allowed to make a major impact on strategy and corner advice between rounds. All we saw was Senior dominating corner speak and really not offering up any strategic, tactical means of attacking what was in front of him across the ring in Shakur Stevenson. And though I was not frustrated by it, and though it didn't make me feel disengaged, I relished viewing this and laughed, because, you know, we've seen situations in the past where people would like to overly criticize other cornermen who happen to be dads, like Bill Haney and his relationship with his son, Devin, in between rounds and fight results. Also, we've seen it where the overcritical audience have gone in on the likes of Brian Norman Sr., working the corner of his son, Norman Jr. So, interestingly, there was not a lot of that sentiment when it came to Lopez Sr. and Jr. And it should have been there because there was plenty of information given by actions and non-actions that lead to believe that maybe substance abuse could be a part of this camp and a reason why they weren't able to operate at their optimum. Now, see, I say things like that, but people can get offended and feel disengaged for, my stating what's obvious. But listen, people, when the man didn't show up at the press conference, there were rumors about alleged, he may be under the influence of something. So he was asked not to partake or to attend. Now, Junior still tried to step out there, but being the fragile mentality that he brings to the fight game itself and matches in particular, he needed more fortification. Now, understand that I have opened up speaking on Junior, and not so much about Stevenson, because Stevenson operated at his optimum. He was allowed to do as he pleased. He was allowed to dictate the tempo. He was allowed to box at the range and zone of comfort at his will, and he was quite successful in doing so. He will not always have those type of advantages because there are other fighters out there who could ask the real questions of him, though he feels that he is a top fighter and the best boxer in boxing. That's what he feels. And there are people who called this performance a masterpiece, though he was in there against a Ronin, a samurai without a master. Yeah! So don't get it twisted, people, because it was only Teofimo. And though we know that Teofimo has avoided the top-notch opposition for several years, the fact that Shakur was able to dictate as he did speaks more about why Teo didn't get in the ring with other fighters or even rematch certain fighters in close contested bouts, because the confidence level wasn't there and also the ability to make the necessary adjustments. And there's that part about adjusting on the fly. You see, as we got past at least 3 rounds, it was then time to switch to a different gear and to make an adjustment to give Shakur a different look. And though that never happened, one of the major issues that he started out the fight with was his poor footwork and foot placement. Now, typically when you have orthodox against southpaw, there's a battle of the lead feet, and the guy who typically keeps his feet on the outside of the opponents can operate more comfortably with what his objectives are, and the guy with the foot on the inside typically will find himself playing catch up with certain moves, certain punches that are thrown off of certain angles, and thereby giving him less space for reaction and countering. Those are the technical aspects of boxing that the casual observer is not necessarily watching out for. But if you could see guys kind of tripping over the feet and stumbling around, those are the indications of which I speak. So, as Shakur basically won the fight with his right jab, he was never asked to do much more than that. And though the right jab was enough to score and bust up the scar tissue around Teofimo's face, Teofimo never went for broke, never decided to break the action of which he saw and found himself facing with Shakur. All it would take is to do something different, but applying yourself in an aggressive manner that lets your opponent know that you are not going to allow him to be comfortable. Now, I believe had he been able to lead the corner, Stacy McKinley would have told Tio certain things that maybe they practiced in their camp, but start implementing this, that, and the third to give Shakur a different look. That didn't happen. And it's very hard to judge because we know that the dad, senior, is not a technical boxing trainer. If you listen to some of his comments in the corner, it sounded a great deal like a guy off the street just trying to tell somebody what to do, you know. And that's very sad because for the amount of money that these fighters get paid in these elite, so-called elite matchups, you need the best of what you can bring with you on the night of to put you in a situation to win. Tio had no chance, not with Senior in his corner. And that is something that people need to really just take stock in and take a hold of. Had this fighter that Shakur defeated been someone like, let's say, Subriel Matias, or even, what was his name, Liam Perro, or Dalton Smith, you know, one of those guys who are the other top contenders and champions in this division of 140, junior welterweight, we would have seen different resistance. And for a fighter to go round after round after round without the application of doing something different, it really speaks volumes about not only the corner, the game plan, and the overall preparation. That's something that can't be denied. And we've seen this before, sometimes on lower level tier of boxing, where you have a guy who's going in against the A-side fighter, and he may be ill prepared to deal with that A-side fighter because, one, his talent may just not be up to snuff. Two, the preparation, though they may have put in stock during camp, the A-side fighter just happens to be a talent that is far superior. So you run into a situation where you basically have no chance. And those are those 80-20, 70-30 type matchups that I've spoken of in the past. Tio basically showed up like a 30 fighter, and there was no turning that around. And it's very unfortunate. Fighters get paid far too much these days to carry on these type of performances. And it's really unfortunate for the viewers because you're kind of robbed of seeing what you hope to be the best of what fighters have to offer when they get into the ring. This is something that can be stated across the board. There's a lot of fighters out here who have enjoyed that type of advantage. And, you know, it gets glossed over because media personnel will spend so much time giving glaze and glory to the winner who was able to dictate and everything, instead of really actually pulling things back a little bit and letting you, the viewing audience, and some of the laymen out there know that, understand this, folks, this is like two different levels. facing off against one another. But not only that, there is one corner that is pretty much bordering on incompetency, as opposed to another corner that came in fully prepared. You see, if you're able to speak this, it will give people the understanding of what they're viewing. Conditioning the mind to be elevated beyond just glazing someone because they're doing well and they're actually receiving no kickback, no opposition. You see, because there's a ton of fighters out there that Shakur can't do this to. And if he remains in this division, he's going to have to face some of them. And you'll see exactly what I'm talking about when that transpires. Salute to Jonathan Simon in the building. He says, salute OG, blessings to you and the chat. Hit the like button. My brother Drew Titan LLC just popped into the building saying, yes, sir. Absolutely, Drew. It takes me to sit up here and tell it like it is. Like I said, there's sometimes when you are dropping factual information, it's not popular because it makes people uncomfortable when they have to look at their deficiencies, when they have to acknowledge their own shortcomings. But this is why you have to have capable people in the corner with you when you're working through this process and you're getting paid the type of money that these men received. You see, because I can guarantee you that had I been working in Teofimo Lopez's Jr.'s corner, I would have had far much more to offer than the familiar term of bro coming from his dad. And it's not like the young man is incapable, but you have to understand the anxieties. Big time fight. Top fighter in front of it. First real stage of a situation like this, even though the Loma situation was solid, but it wasn't like this. Because if I'm not mistaken, the Loma situation, I don't think that was pay-per-view, was it? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. If it was pay-per-view, Stormy don't remember every small detail, but I don't think that was pay-per-view. But you think about it and you say to yourself, I have to give the young man instructions that he can hold fast to and give him something to try each and every time he's out there. What's interesting is if you guys remember when Tio knocked out Richard Comey, there was a shot that was well timed that he threw as Comey was wading in looking to jab, and it was a well timed shot that caught Comey with an overhand shot and knocked him smooth out. Tio never looked to punch with Shakur Stevenson, and Shakur would later state that he felt like he was the stronger guy. It's easy to feel that you're the stronger guy when the opponent doesn't have the self-confidence to be able to have pushback for you. You see, intimidation works in strange manners toward people, fighters in particular, because though they can put on a good front that they're secure in what they're doing, oftentimes fighters will have reservations, and that's where a quality coach and trainer can come in and remind them of not necessarily what to do, but what the game plan is, and give them something to try. I was listening to one of the UK channels where these two gentlemen were discussing the fight, and one of them had the nerve to say he didn't care if it was Emmanuel Stewart or Cus D'Amato in Tio's corner, it wouldn't have helped him. You see the look on my face, right? Do you know what kind of blasphemous statement that is in regards to those two trainers? Cus D'Amato, who was a master of the mental and psychological approach in training fighters. Emanuel Stewart, who had a voluminous stable of fighters, world champions, and world renowned for being offensive juggernauts. How dare these guys speak like this? I couldn't believe that when I did see, but this is why I listen to certain commentary, because it helps me to understand how little is understood by the casual observers. That was so off base that the person should have their mouth rinsed out with a bar of soap. Case in point, when Muhammad Ali was taking on George Foreman in 1974 in Kinshasa, Zaire, one of Ali's good friends, confidants, Cus D'Amato, told Ali that George Foreman has gotten so confident because he's been stopping guys early that he's not presently mindful of defending himself properly. He's wide open for right hands, and he keeps his left very low because as he stalks his opponents, he keeps his guard like this as if he's looking to touch and feel where a guy is range-wise, and then he looks to snap the shot. Ali, who is one of the fastest heavyweights in history, was told by Cus that he could take full advantage of George Foreman's defensive flaws. If you go back and watch the fight, in the first round, Ali threw somewhere between 8 to 12 lead right hands, and most of them landed on George Foreman. Now, Ali was never known as a one-punch knockout fighter, but he had precision, meaning accuracy, and he had the speed, and anyone who understands the sweet science can understand that speed is power in boxing if it's utilized properly. So as Ali was throwing those lead right hands and George is walking into them, there's a double effect. If you looked at Foreman's face by the end of the fight, it was swollen grotesquely, and it looked like he had a mask over his actual face with the subdural swelling, all from Ali's pinpoint right hands. And if you remember, the last punch before the KO that landed was a straight right hand. Cus D'Amato, Muhammad Ali, legends of the sport of boxing. But these two men and their suggestion that Cus D'Amato and Emanuel Stewart couldn't even help Lopez Jr. I beg to differ. I beg to differ. Do you see that a lot of times it is a supreme coached circumstance from a corner man that can bring a fighter through? A lot of times. Sometimes the fighters will rise to an occasion on their own accord. But dare I mention Angelo Dundee's famous quote to Sugar Ray Leonard entering the 14th, 15th round of his fight with Tommy Hearns, when he told him, "You're blowing it, son. You're blowing it." because Ray Leonard had fallen into a situation in the fight where he had allowed Tommy to get into a very smooth rhythm of boxing. And Tommy was taking all of the boxing play away from Leonard, keeping him at the end of his long jab and running him around the ring with Ray's movement, all the while building up points and putting rounds in the bank. When Angelo said those famous words to Ray, time was running short, and he let him know he needed to do something, adjusting on the fly. He had to change up the rhythm of what he was doing. He said, you have to be quicker and you have to take it away from him. Ray Leonard understood the assignment. And so he went out against Tommy and he began to attack with reckless abandon. Damn Tommy's jab. I'll let him jab, I'll slip under it, and I'll throw some hooks after that because my hand speed is better than his. But he's got the length. So I have to get inside on him. I have to do some things where I can get to him and begin to break him down. Ray Leonard gets a 15th round stoppage against Tommy Hearns. 14th or 15th round, I'm sorry, my mind, but the whole point of it is that change came from a corner man that allowed his fighter to know, and he had a fighter who was more than capable. That's the other part of things. You have to have a fighter who is capable of executing what the corner commands happen to be, even if it means he has to risk running into heated fire. The whole objective is, we knew we trained for this. We have to apply ourselves in a manner of which we gain ground. That's very important. Jamal Davis says, listen to Teddy Atlas talking to Michael Moore. That's how Michael Moore won the title. Yes, fighters have the tools, but the corner gives them the extra confidence and strategy to win. A good trainer is going to look out for things that the fighter doesn't see from round to round. Jonathan Simon out there says, that's a difference between a coach and a teacher. We have a lot of coaches. A teacher develops your physically and mentally, because a fight can go either way. I miss the great teachers. Well, you see, there still are a few around, and as long as you have guys like these two gentlemen that I spoke of, they will get in the way and clutter up the sentiment of what is required by real coaches and teachers. You see, it's unfortunate that they have that type of influence, because when they come out like that, they look really bad, and they keep the boxing people, the supporters of the sport and everything, they keep them veiled in situations because they're not passing on the information about the real teachers. I'm trying to look and see if I can pull these guys up so I can let you know their names. Ade Oladipo and Liam Go. It's A and G, these two guys. Ade and G-Man. Those are the guys from the UK. And I listened to them earlier this afternoon. And when I heard those kind of remarks about Cus D'Amato and Emmanuel Stewart, I just scoffed at it, because I'm like, really? You guys don't know. Man, can I get that phrase from what's her name? Roger Mayweather. People not knowing anything about the sport of boxing. There you go, right there. Those two numbskulls, speaking like they were, basically throwing down the resume of teaching, the professor merits that these two men carried, Cuss and Emmanuel. Do you know Cuss taught Lennox Lewis how to protect a shaky chin because Lennox had been knocked out by a solid right hand and had been hurt by right hands through his career until he was trained by Emanuel Stewart. Once Emanuel started training Lennox, Lennox fought in a manner of which that chin became more protected than ever before. Against the likes of Tony Tucker, Frank Bruno, Oliver McCall, you would see Lennox at times get touched with right hands, and he wasn't as defensive as Emanuel helped him be because he was too busy trying to wind up his own right hand, and all fighters had to do was prepare and be well timed in what they had to offer in return. So Emanuel assisted a great deal in Lennox becoming better. He also assisted with Vladimir Klitschko. Vladimir Klitschko was stopped a couple of times before he ran across the likes of Emanuel Stewart, who was able to help teach him how to become Vladimir Klitschko, tie the men up, especially if they're shorter, and wrap them up. He taught him that check hook because Vladimir had a very good check left hook. These are noted means of survival coming from a good teacher, a quality teacher. So these guys, what they said, like I said, was a blasphemous statement toward men who were able and capable of putting fighters in the best position to win. I gave you examples. I gave you Lennox. I gave you Vladimir. I gave you Ali. From these two men, I gave you Angelo Dundee. It's not a difficult thing. It says that we presently have 9 people out there. Does anyone have any questions about what I've had to say here? Because I know I've been talking for a good 45 minutes. But I was on fire for this subject this evening because, again, it was more about what Tio came ill-prepared during the fight. He may have prepared in the gym because Stacy McKenzie was there in the gym, but they did not allow him to complete the process in the ring on fight night. And that was a severe misnomer. These guys wasted their money. I would like for someone out there who may be a content creator, because I've seen various guys interview Stacy McKinley, and I would like for someone to ask him about that very notion of which I speak, the fact that he wasn't allowed to be the lead voice in the biggest fight of Teofimo Lopez Jr.'s career on fight night, because I think he could have brought something. He has that experience. There's no way that Lopez Sr. has the experience that Mr. McKinley, has and could offer. There's no way. No way. So, with that, I'm just saying my piece on it, And as I said before, we're talking switching gears, adjusting on the fly. Yeah. So Jonathan Simon says, well, OG, you not only have an understanding on what happened, you are also having an experienced, educated eye for the sport. Yes, I do, and thank you for that acknowledgement. But do you see how I pointed this out to you all? That it's not that Shakur is so great. It's just that his opponent was so bad. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's that type of situation. Salute to the General, 78 Sports TV in the building. What's good with you, General? I'm cooking this evening, General. I'm only gonna be on a few more minutes, but if you missed me early, please go back. Because I ran it down, General. I ran it down. I gave the full outline. There are some people that won't speak what I've had to say, but I spoke it because it's the factual side of boxing. You see, switching gears and adjusting on the fly happens to be something that fighters need to be prepared to do, and people in their everyday walk of life need to be able to do it as well. Because as I said in my opening remark, sometimes you may have to adjust the pace, Pick it up, slow it down, Dictate. Sometimes you may have to adjust on the fly. There's a detour up ahead. There's a bump in the road. There's a roadblock. You have to figure, what do I do next? And to be able to have the ability and knack to make adjustments on the fly is the difference between being successful, being ordinary, and being unsuccessful. Yeah, it's that simple, people. It's that simple. And accountability through it all is what really makes the determination. And seeing that Lopez Sr. tried to tell interviewers in the aftermath, that wasn't my son in there. I don't know what it wasn't him. Yes, it was. He looked just like you. But that wasn't a coach in there with your son. That wasn't a person who can bring him through a rough tide. Someone who has anchored a ship and sailed one on rough seas before, like Stacy McKinley. You got in the way, and the ship went down. It's that freaking simple. Listen, this is Stormy B Man. Shout out to the mighty LDBC. Everybody have a wonderful week, and I'll catch you on the next one.